Let's do things a little differently today, and we're going to focus on this little flowchart that we've got here, our creation/authority flowchart. Who is the author? Who has the authority, right? So everything was created by a creator, as I think we all know. Let's face it, even if it was a big bang, even if people want to say, oh, there was this big bang and there was a particle of infinite smallness and it just exploded one day and boom, there's the visible universe, right? That's fine. We still have a creator of that infinitely small particle. I mean, there's no getting around it. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. As far as the specifics go, I mean, I seriously doubt that we can fully comprehend the creator of the universe, but some people are going to try. Those details don't matter, especially for this particular purpose. We're just saying everybody in their right mind has to acknowledge there was a creator of the universe, and that's where it all begins, right? So, moving down, so far we've got things that are alive, real and living, okay? The creator and the universe which it created. Maybe the universe is its body. Who knows? But in any event, that's real. That's life. And so from that comes men and women. That's what that little symbol there is, okay? Men and women. These are the sons and daughters of the living God. So that's where common law comes in, right? At some point, people started kind of figuring out like, oh, wow, there's this creator. None of us created anything, and there's this creator, and we've got to figure out how to manage all this stuff. Let's try to live as the creator would have wanted us to. Right? And they turn inward and they find their spiritual wisdom. Regardless, however that came about, that's where you get your common law. You got your men and women. You've got customs. You have got a society with law. Although none of it's written down, it doesn't need to be, right? That's what we had first. And so from there, now this is where the deception comes in and dead things come in and things get interesting. At some point, some among the men and women decided that it would be a smart idea to create a government, a fiction that would then govern certain things. So they created it. It doesn't have any life of its own, right? You can't give life, right, unless you're the creator. That's why there's just that one little red linkage there. So now we're in the land of the dead. We created a dead thing. We called it a government. Governments work different ways. Regardless, we got a government that we've created. And this government has certain things that it can now control. But what can it control? Well, let's take a look before we go any further down. Let's see. So far, the flow of authority and power and all of that and control, it only goes in one direction. We're looking at it, goes down from the creator to men and women, from men and women down to the government. So what can if the government wanted to control something, it would have to create something, because that's the way this works. Okay? Water doesn't flow uphill. This is natural law. So the government does then create things. It creates personas. Okay, persona, that's an old Greek word for the mask that an actor, that a man acting, would put on to go in and act his part in a play. It's an act. Have you ever heard of the Traffic Act or the Stamp Act? They're all acts. We're all just acting. So that's your persona. And we'll get into how they loop you into that another time. But that's your persona. That's your straw man, which the government can create. And the government can then rule, right? Has authority over. And so artificial persons, think Chase Bank, right, as I'm so fond of mentioning, these too can be created by government. These are your corporations and things like that. All dead stuff, right? The only life that they get is the life lent to it by a man or a woman who's willing to put on a mask, right? So these artificial persons get created. And you see there's a linkage between personas and artificial person, because what happens when you put on, well, let me say it like this. What happens when you go and ask for something from the government? You put on your persona and you go and ask for something from the government, right? You can get in bed with the government and have a baby and call it a corporation, right? It's always stillborn. It's a dead thing. And so you have this baby, this corporation, and you can then do things with it. It's an artificial person. But again, the government, whether we're talking about your restaurant corporation or whether we're talking about your persona, the government created those things so the government can rule those things, has authority over those things. Very important to understand. That is why learning how to stand as a man or woman and be recognized, right? You can be recognized as a man or woman because of your words and deeds. Okay, if you've got your persona on, I mean, you just imagine, right? Grandma turns around, puts on a wolf costume, and nobody recognizes her. They're treating her differently. That's because she's got a persona. She's got a mask on, right? She's appearing as something other than what she really is, so she's being treated that way. So in order to be recognized as a man or woman, you've got to behave that way. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. You know, the government can't actually force a man or a woman to do anything unless they violated real law, in which case now it's just a situation where you violated common law, right? You've caused harm, and it just so happens that the government, the dead entity, has a statute on the books that like matches up with that. That's not really what you're being held accountable to. You're being held accountable to the common law of do no harm, basically, right? That's it in a nutshell. This is simple stuff, like I said.